You are listening to the Jag Bros podcast. We are three brothers who love the Jacksonville Jaguars in the highs and the lows. My name is Jack, along with my two brothers, JT and Joey. And we had to wait all the way till Wednesday to record because Monday was so painful. So many injuries, terrible defensive performance. We're going to get into it in a bit, but want to hear from you guys. How are we feeling today on Wednesday?
The pain is still real. Oh, man. Not only was it a terrible loss on national television, we lose half of our key important players on both sides of the ball. Oh, I'm in a low spot. I was in a low spot Monday, and I'm still in a low spot today.
Yeah, yesterday was really tough, really sad. A lot of my friends at work and everything felt sorry for me as well. They all saw Trevor getting hurt and all the injuries. So, I mean, it was just a disappointing loss. I think it might be a little less painful than a lot of people are making it out to be, but it still definitely hurts. But I am starting to bounce back a little bit.
Bouncing back for sure. There is some hope. So we're recording this Wednesday and Wednesday afternoon already. We've seen Trevor Lawrence come out for the press conference. He looks really good. No boot, no limp. And so that was super positive. He went ahead and quashed all the rumors of Colin Cowherd and others making fun of the Jaguars. No, he said multiple times he did not want a cart. So let's go ahead and crush that. Trevor Lawrence said our Jacksonville staff, our medical team is incredible.
Hold up. Before we go any further, Colin Cowherd is an absolute clown. I've hated that guy for years. For over a decade, he's been talking about how the Jaguars should move out of the city of Jacksonville. And all he does, he brings absolutely no value at all in the sports world. And I just wish he saw the axe, just like several of the other better commentators have throughout the years at ESPN and Fox and other places. But he's been terrible.
Oh, agreed. He's a Skip Bayless. He will give whatever hot take, even if there's no facts to back it up, just like he did talking about Monday night saying, oh, the Jaguars are a Mickey Mouse organization, moved to Orlando already. What a joke. Terrible take, made up facts, fake news. So, yeah, horrible take. But we're going to talk about mostly the game. We're going to talk about the Jaguars. We're going to talk about our injuries, where we go from here. But first, we're going to kick off with some game balls here in just a minute. There was some positive things from this game. We're going to break down the offensive performance. We are going to talk about CJ Beathard with him potentially starting 1, 2, maybe no games. We'll see here throughout this week. And then we're also going to talk about the Jaguars' defensive performance, on Monday night. Talking about special teams and coaching, and then looking ahead for the Jaguars as well. But Joey, get us started. There were a few good plays and a few good players on Monday night. Go ahead and get us started with some game balls from this game.
Got you. I will go ahead and start off with the one bright spot on the defense, and then we don't have to talk about the defense for the rest of this part of the segment. And that game ball goes to Josh Allen, once again, getting 1.5 sacks and an interception. The only person actually trying on the defense. I thought he had a really good game. I saw he was one of the only people making tackles against the running backs and really kind of putting out his all. And I just wish that the defense had followed his example.
Yeah, Josh Allen absolutely played lights out all game long. I was pleased to see his performance on national media. And boy, that price tag is going to get ever more expensive for him as each game goes on. For me, on the offensive side of the ball, I would give it to Parker Washington. Some questionable plays on special teams, but he stepped in admirably. He caught his first touchdown as well, filling in for Christian Kirk, who got hurt on the very first play of the game. He played great out there and was really liked seeing what he was putting out there on tape.
Speaking of first touchdown, my game ball is going to go to Evan Ingram. 9 passes thrown his way, caught all 9 for 82 yards. And finally, I've been calling for it. Joey, you've been calling for it. JT, we've all been calling for it. Jaguars fans all over the world been calling for it. Finally, Evan Ingram gets that touchdown. He dove from about 4 yards away. And I said on Twitter, I was like, he would have dove for 10 yards to finally get that touchdown. It was awesome to see that for him. But he gets my game ball from Monday night. And again, the final score was 34-31, a loss in overtime. But there were a few good players on Monday night for the Jags.
Yeah, and you could see the whole team rallied around him once he scored. 2 great blocks on that play too to spring him free, and by ETN and I think Ridley. But really great to see him score a touchdown. I know that Doug Peterson and the team have been talking about that over the last few weeks as well.
And apparently that was his first ever touchdown in the Jaguars stadium as well. All his touchdowns last year came from away games. So another big moment was that's his first ever one in Duval. So really awesome to see that.
With that, let's look at the offensive side of the ball. In some ways, it was a productive outing where we scored 31 points in regulation. We also obviously lost not only Christian Kirk, but also Trevor Lawrence and Walker Little in the fourth quarter, which we'll certainly want to dive into. But you know what? For a team that scored 31 points, it really did not feel like the offense was clicking on all cylinders, especially for huge chunks of that game. How did you guys see it?
I thought the offense was good. I actually really liked what I was seeing from Trevor Lawrence. He feels like he's been on fire. That's what made the injury so painful, especially. He was already at 258 yards, 2 touchdowns. But my biggest concern, and let's go ahead and get into it, because this was a game that we thought would be a blowout, and we were predicted to win by more than a touchdown. Several of us love the Jags to win big in this game, and I look no further on the offensive side of the ball than at the running attack, because we were going up against the second worst rush defense in the league. And ETN is held to just 11 carries, 45 yards, and then nobody else has more than 10 yards. So what went wrong on Monday night with the rushing attack? Did we just abandon it too quickly? Was it play calling? Was it blocking? What happened where we go up against a weak defense? And hey, on the other side of the field, they run all over us. So what happened with the Jaguars rushing attack on Monday? That is the big question to me.
Yes, I saw that problem too. I texted y'all, why are we abandoning the run so much? I thought Trevor played really, really well, even though people are still somehow blaming him, this loss on him, which wasn't his loss at all. If he had not gone out in the game, I do believe we would have won, because I believe he would have scored a touchdown on that game-winning drive instead of settling for a field goal. I do believe that Trevor also would have been player of the week for a third time in a row if he had stayed in the game. So Trevor played lights out. I don't know why we abandoned the run so much. My only kind of guess is that Travis Etienne is not healthy, and they didn't want to rely on Dearness Johnson as much as I thought they were going to. I had him as my dark horse, but we just really never even gave him a shot. I was very surprised at the lack of running from both Tank and Dearness Johnson. I thought since Travis Etienne may be a little bit injured that we'd switch over to those two guys, but instead we just decided to pass the ball more instead of running.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joey. And what's going to be interesting as we break down both the offensive and defensive side of the ball is this is always the difficult part of how much was it play calling, how much was it execution, and especially Monday night, how much of it was injuries. Having Christian Kirk go out on that first drive was very painful. We had some injuries on the offensive line. And then, of course, Trevor Lawrence gets injured as well. So you can't be too upset with 31 points on the board. I think a lot more of our frustration will come out when we talk about the defense. But I was frustrated, especially because it seems to be more of a struggle now that we're not running the ball well. So I look for Sunday night. Fortunately, it's a shorter week. I think we need to fix these running problems, whether it's blocking, play calling, ETN, Johnson, whatever. We need to be able to run the ball, especially if Trevor Lawrence does not play on Sunday.
I'm going to just tell you this. I don't think that we can run the ball. I understand that our offensive line has shown flashes of being able to block, and it's been up against kind of some bad defensive lines. I think it's more the anomaly of they will have a good game blocking, then they actually show you their true colors and the fact that they just aren't good enough. Brandon Sheriff has regressed. Luke Fortner doesn't deserve to be on the field. Walker Little made to be look like a little boy because he was getting driven back constantly. This offensive line, I don't know what Phil Rauscher needs to do. I don't know what Doug Peterson needs to do to get some just, I don't know, confidence, dog in them. It's really, really sad to see how pitiful our offensive line looks. They're not even helping Trevor Lawrence up when he gets knocked down because they stink so bad. This offensive line needs to make a change. I don't know what it is. They need to completely overhaul it, whether that means they need to get down in 3-point stance and you just never get to stand back up, or they just need to never leave the weight room so they can actually get some push. But that offensive line just has to change.
I think the most frustrating part of this is I think reality started to set in for me. And look, I'm a to the moon type of guy, especially when it comes to the Jags. I try to see the optimistic side. I try to sometimes blot out all the haters. And look, we had the chance. We had the chance to be the number one team in the AFC. The Chiefs already lost on Sunday night. We have our chance prime time against a battered Bengals team, and we blow it. And you're exactly right, Joey. It does come on the offensive line. We've talked about multiple times that ETN is leading the NFL or top 2 in the NFL for missed tackles. And we took that as a positive thing, considering it shows that he's got great balance and he's extending plays and yada, yada, yada. But it also shows the fact that our offensive line is giving up a hit after hit after hit way too early for ETN. There almost never is a hole for him to run through, and it shows up the most on these 3rd down and 4th down and 1 scenarios. I mean, we're having to like pray and Trevor's getting creative with going over the top for some of these sneak plays. But the fact that you could not run against the Bengals, who we already outlined was the worst run defense we've seen all year and bottom 3 in most run categories, was extremely concerning. And it just adds to the clunkiness, if you will, of what the offense looks like from time to time, because despite scoring 31 points, 7 of those were essentially a freebie from the defense with the interception from Josh Allen, which, Joey, you talked about his play already. But there was just times where we needed a critical drive or critical points, and we just didn't get those. And that's what's, I think, extremely frustrating, especially when we're in 3rd and short scenarios.
Yeah, you talk about critical drives. I believe that second drive of the game was critical. They missed 100%. The field goal. Give us the ball pretty much at half the 50-yard line, and we can't go up and score 14-0. I think that would have put the game away. I think the Bengals 100%. Would have lost, all their ability and fight, and we would have won. But instead, we didn't get it, and then we let them go score. It's 7-7, and we just let them hang around too long, and it just came down to who's going to have the ball last. I don't ever want to hear the Jags and number 1 seed in the AFC ever again. 3 times it's been brought up, and all 3 times it has been bad losses. The second the national media takes a look at Jacksonville, and we look terrible. It happened with the Chiefs. We go into it 1-0. This is a rematch. This is kind of Jaguars coming out, and we can't move the ball at all. Then it comes again with the 49ers, 5 games in a row, victories. Jaguars finally looking like a Super Bowl team, could be easily the number 1 seed in the AFC, and then we don't show up for the 49ers game. And then this game, as you said, it was ours for the taking. We have to play a battered Cincinnati Bengals team with a backup quarterback, and we can't get it done in our own home. Don't ever bring up number 1 seed with AFC ever again. And national media, don't look at Jacksonville because we're too scared to have the national media look at us. We just need to go under the radar and play away games because those are the only games we can win.
This is the first time in a year and a half where we just completely fell flat on our face against a team that we were vastly superior to. I mean, the fact that we were actually tied at half 14-14, the Bengals had maximum momentum at that point. the fact that the Jaguars could have easily taken a 14-0 lead and then just ran away and hid in the second half. I mean, I think we're predicting a chance to see Dearness Johnson and Tank Bigsby in the second half because we're going to be up by so big. We assumed CJ Beathard would come in the fourth quarter, but that was with a 31-7 lead, not when we needed a field goal just to send the game to overtime.
This is what I've said again and again about this Jaguars team, is that somehow it keeps happening where we get too overconfident, where we think, oh, this is an easy game, or we're feeling ourselves. We think we're all that. And Joe, you were pointing out in the 49ers game, I think it happened early in the season too, that they bought into all the hype. And I think yet again, this is an example where they get too overconfident, but you have to go in and play the game. You're still, yes, you're going up against a backup quarterback, but this is still an NFL team, a team that wants to win. And we get outclassed again. We get completely out hustled, out heart, everything, because this team needs to stay humble and hungry, because when we get too confident, we play terrible. And to me, it's not a home problem. Maybe it is, but I think it's a problem of we get too confident. We get 2 wins in a row. We get a big win in Houston, an awesome game. And we think, oh, this is going to be easy. We're going to blow them out. And we get embarrassed.
I don't understand why people think that this was going to be like just a rollover game, I guess, because this has happened in the NFL.
You said it was going to be a rollover game.
You said 56-0.
Not because they could just come out and not play. I thought that we were going to come out and perform at 100%. That's why I thought it was going to be a blowout. Not because, they can just not even play and still win. Because if you don't show up and you don't play well, look at when the Browns beat the 49ers. They had a backup quarterback, and then the Jets beat the Eagles with Zach Wilson. If you don't show up to play, then you can lose these games. It's very possible to lose these games. I believed that the Jaguars were ascending, and they were going to play at 100% against a bad team, making a blowout win. I didn't know that the defense was not even going to come out of their houses and not play. That's a big difference. And I don't know what they are doing in Duval, but it's got to change. You need to rent a hotel for all the players to stay at or something, because they're not coming to play with the right attitude at home. They come in, they start off slow, they look sluggish, they look like they don't want to play, but yet when we go away, then they're locked in. It's a business trip. They start fast, they play strong. And it's a different team when we play away. So something is happening in their routine from a home and away games. And I don't know what you need to change. Either get a hotel room so everyone can just think about football or something. But the home attitude and everything has to change. The slow, sluggish start at home is disrespectful to your fans, and it's disrespectful to everyone in Duval. It's got to stop.
The defense stayed in Houston. There's no question they didn't show up. But before we get there, and we're going to talk about the defensive performance in a second, I think we should talk about the quarterback situation, because, again, we're sitting here Wednesday night, and the big question is going to be, can Trevor Lawrence play? And he is a warrior. I think we've seen that completely in the last 48 hours. Is number one, Trevor Lawrence has the 3rd longest streak of career starts for NFL quarterbacks. And it's only because he's played in every single game they can start. He's played through injuries already this season, and he wants to play Sunday. And we're going to see. He's got a high ankle sprain. He's currently questionable, so it's something to monitor throughout the week. But I also want to give us some background and some thoughts on CJ Beathard, because in case he does play, we want you to know who this guy is. You've, of course, seen him play in the preseason for the Jaguars. He has been the backup quarterback for the Jags since 2021. And so he's currently 30 years old. He's a guy with about average size for quarterback. He's 6'2", 195. He played at Iowa, had a very, very strong junior season, and then kind of tailed off a little bit senior year. But that junior year was strong enough. He goes in, he's drafted in the 3rd round for the 49ers, but ultimately he does not have much success in the NFL. And you look at him, even in just a few drives, to me, he is the definition of mid. He's not terrible. He's not great. He's going to give you about a C performance. Best case scenario, he gives you about a B minus B for your quarterback. So I want to give y'all two questions. Number one, if Trevor Lawrence says that he is ready to go and is cleared for Sunday, do you automatically start him against the Browns or do you hold him back for the Ravens game?
I think you absolutely start him because I don't even think CJ Beathard is mid. Watching him play, yes, he put the ball where it needed to be, but those were some of the weakest passes I've ever seen thrown with like the velocity of a middle school quarterback floating it in there when it's only going 6 yards. I needed to see a lot more strength out of his throws because any good, respectable defense will go pick him off during the game, and he needs to not start, I believe.
Could not disagree more. You absolutely sit him regardless of what happens. The Browns have one of the top 3 defenses in the league. They have elite pass rushers all over the place, and you're going to have an immobile Trevor Lawrence. Yes, Joey, you're right that having a wounded Trevor gives us a better chance to win that game. But guess what? That game is going to be a rock fight. Cleveland barely scores 20 points against most teams. I think our defense is probably going to have a nice rebound considering we typically play well on the road. So no, we do not start Trevor under any circumstances. You have to save him for a playoff run. Whether you win this game against Cleveland or not is almost meaningless. You most likely will still win your division. And if you really want to continue to compete for seeding issues, you have to have him against the Baltimore game. But no, I think in no way should you play him because you are just setting yourself up. Like it's just being so short-term sighted in for this game.
But this is a game that you can win and you need all the W's. I'm scared of the Ravens game, even if Trevor is fully healthy, if we can win or lose. Whereas if we have Trevor in this Cleveland Browns game, then we can go get the W and secure another win. And I think that's what we need to do. You can save him for the Ravens game, rest him because I think we're going to
rest him for the Ravens game. Like I know you at least have 2 weeks, 2 weeks of him healing before the Ravens game. If you want to send him for the Ravens game, fine. That way you just win your last 3 games and you most likely win your division. And you'll be playing one of the wild card teams in the thing. But I think under no circumstances do you play him. You know Myles Garrett's going to have 3 sacks alone, considering how bad our offensive line has been playing. And yes, CJ Beathard did play for Iowa, and so many of you are thinking like, oh, great, how do we in the world are we going to even win with a potential Iowa quarterback? Well, he actually was averaging 31 points per game at Iowa. And so like he is solid. He's been a backup for a number of years. We even saw him make a really nice pass that got called back on a phantom holding call in overtime where he had hit Calvin Ridley on the 2-yard line. That all of a sudden this game is over and Jacksonville scores a touchdown and we're not nearly feeling as bad as we are now. CJ Beathard is fine. He's a pro. He's a guy who is going to at least put you in a position to score 17-ish points, which could be good enough to beat the Browns.
I actually agree with Joey here, mostly because I think this is just Trevor's warrior mentality. We saw this last year with Patrick Mahomes of the team trying to say, hey, we need to rest you. We need to keep you. And he's like, if I'm healthy and can play, I want to go play. And that's what I see in Trevor. And so I don't even know if you're going to be able to keep him from the field. But I want to get to part 2. And look, we're going to talk about this more in our next episode as well, previewing the Jaguars versus the Browns game on Sunday. But I know y'all are all thinking about it. The second question is, if Trevor is out and you're starting CJ Beathard, what do you look at for the Jaguars to do from a backup quarterback position? Do we go get Nathan Rourke? Do we go get someone else? Because CJ Beathard, yes, to me, he is mid. His stats are for his career 3,600 yards, 18 touchdowns, 14 picks, but he's also 2-10. And he was holding his wrist there, which was really scary for a minute because we didn't have a quarterback. So if Trevor's out, what do you think the Jaguars do in terms of backup quarterback?
Oh, 100%. They bring up Nathan Rourke to play backup quarterback. And I think that he would be a better option, honestly, than CJ Beathard. But the Jags don't agree. So he'll start. But If CJ Beathard is hurt, then it's definitely going to be Nathan Rourke.
Joey, this could be your time to shine. For those that don't know, ever since the offseason and the preseason games, Joey's been extremely high on Nathan Rourke. And so this could be our chance that he'll get to see the field if CJ Beathard plays extremely poorly or if there's an injury to CJ in the game. So look, I'd be excited either way. I would love to see what Nathan Rourke can do. He was a CFL All-Star and at times looked pretty solid during the preseason game. So I would not be necessarily upset either way for either one of those guys.
He's a lot more mobile than CJ Beathard. He's
True.
a lot more improvisable, if that's a word. And then also he can throw it a lot harder than I believe CJ Beathard. You brought up CJ Beathard's long bomb to Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't say that was a good throw. That was more of a backyard jackpot throw it up there, and Calvin Ridley just went up and made a play. It wasn't that it was like a perfect dime to him or anything like that. That was just one of those, all right, I'm about to heave it up there and pray that you go up and catch it.
Fair enough, but he did throw it, which not every quarterback will do that. And he gave his receiver a chance to make a play, but that's a fair point.
Of course, it would be a penalty on what feels like the only jump ball that Calvin Ridley goes up and gets, but that's another conversation. Here's a few of the names, too, if the Jaguars do look at quarterback that's just kind of being tossed around. The Browns obviously went and got an older veteran quarterback in Joe Flacco. So some of the names that have been tossed around would be Nick Foles because of his connection with Doug Peterson. Cam Newton is another name that's floating out there as well in terms of veteran quarterbacks. But we'll see. This would be a historic moment for sure if Nathan Rourke gets to come in, light it up. I know Joey will be buying all of his merch if he comes in and has a big game on Sunday.
Yeah, and so we'll talk more about this in the Browns breakdown. But for now, let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball, where we've already hinted at it a couple of times. The defense just did not show up at all. Where Joe Burrow went 32 of 37 for 354 yards and a touchdown. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, not Joe Burrow. Peyton Manning went 32 of 37 for 354. Oh, wait. No, it wasn't Peyton Manning either. Oh, Tom Brady must have gone 32 for 37 for 354 yards. No, it wasn't him either. It was Jake freaking Browning making his second career start ever in the NFL. How many times have we seen the Jaguars defense do this through the years? Whether it's an aging Kurt Warner or an aging Mark Brunell throwing 20 straight completions against our defense. Mariota lighting us up for 300 yards. Mike Vick one time, I think on a night game at home, lit us up for 300 yards at the tail end of his career. It's so frustrating when we see average to below average quarterbacks that are completely unproven light it up like they're Joe Burrow or Peyton Manning. And that's exactly what happened on Monday night.
You see the difference in a great play caller in Zach Taylor versus his brother on the Jaguars sideline offense coordinator, Press Taylor. Zach Taylor, you have to give him credit, called it perfectly. He just kept throwing those screen passes, lulling our defense to sleep, getting enough momentum, enough confidence. I could not stand the entire Monday night game. Jake Browning and his smug face of him feeling himself, feeling so good, because that never, ever should have happened. He should have never been over 200 yards, much less over 300, much less over 350 yards. Completely pathetic performance by our defense.
JT, I need to apologize to you because earlier in the season, I was very high on our secondary. Our secondary is trash now. Tyson Campbell is a bust. I don't believe that he's actually a generational cornerback. I think that it was a fluke year last year. He wasn't good his first year. He got better last year, and then he's showing you his true colors again. He's had this hamstring injury for forever now, and yet it's not that he's getting outran or he's just getting blown by. Like, his technique is as bad as some high schoolers that I've watched. It's gone from him. His confidence, I don't know if it's gone, but he's just not the same player at all. He needs to sit and figure it out. Devon Hamilton played like garbage. He needs to sit back out. I don't know why we extended and gave him all that money. He is completely healthy. The office says it's not his health, it's not his strength. He's just not playing well. And it seems to be a actual pattern that players on the Jaguars who have gotten injured and they've come back and they're not the same player. It happened to Gregory Jr. during the game. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know where he was going. He had been on the IR for a while, came back, and he's not the same guy. Devon Hamilton's not the same guy. Tyson Campbell's not the same guy. If you seem to get injured, Zay Jones doesn't seem to be quite the same person either since he came back from injury. All these injured players aren't coming back and going back to what they were. They're regressing. And it's really bad because all these players were key players that we needed them to play at peak performances, not bottom barrel performances.
I think that's a little too far because you are forgetting a few key names. Trevor Lawrence had a big injury. He's come back and played very well. On the defensive side of the ball, Devin Lloyd was out several weeks, and he's come back very, very strong. But I do 100% agree with you, Joey, on Campbell. He, to me, was the biggest culprit. He played horrible. He got burnt by Jamar Chase. What is he doing on an island against Jamar Chase? You know what the Bengals want to do. Their only opportunity is to get the ball to Jamar Chase. And of course, he blows by him, and Campbell looks silly falling over on himself. Campbell has been bad all year. And I don't know. It's either this lingering injury or he is a one-hit wonder, and that was last year, and he's just not good anymore. But whatever it is, he can't get back on the field with this performance because we're not going to win games with such a major liability where the wide receiver's always going to be open, always catching balls on Campbell.
Let me come in here and be the voice of reason for you guys and actually not overreact. One, of course, people that are coming off injury are not playing at 100%. In fact, most of them are probably at somewhere between 70 to 80% and trying to give it a go. And your point, Jack, is spot on. Why is he on an island 101 with Jamar Chase? There are a few corners even at 100% that can run with him stride for stride. You have to give him the respect that he deserves. I would have loved to have seen some safety help over when I don't know why we're shading over to help like on that particular play, like slow down some of the other guys like Cisco should have absolutely been over the top for him. And generally we usually are. So that's super unfortunate as well, because that was such a big momentum play when he got that 76-yard touchdown. This is one of those things where you don't want to see Gregory Jr. in there. Ideally, you have Johnson, the guy that you were really high on coming out of Texas A&M, play that nickel corner, and he wasn't getting looks on the field. It's possible Herndon is just actually that important because Cincinnati loves to employ that quick game, that quick passing, you guys screens, quick slants. Like it's a really fun run pass option very frequently. And so if you're good at that, which Browning actually is pretty solid at that, it can look really good. And that's part of the reason why Joe Burrow's been so successful. And so taking out some of the key players in the middle of the field, like Herndon, really hurt. And I am absolutely not ready to write off Campbell. I mean, I think we were all ready to roast Williams last year at corner. And this year he's playing at a near Pro Bowl level, and teams aren't even picking on him anymore because he's been so opportunistic with interceptions and playing lockdown coverage. So I think Campbell can get there, but if you don't have a good enough pass rush, which at times we really didn't outside of Josh Allen, it just makes those corners look a little bit worse. And I don't remember if it was you, Joey, or Jack, whichever one said that it felt like Browning was extremely comfortable back there. That was evident all night.
No, I don't really accept your take there, JT. I mean, he was throwing it only 5 yards. It doesn't matter how good of a pass rush you have. If you're only holding it for half a second, you're not going to get there. That's on the secondary to jump those short routes and not play 20 yards off like Andre Cisco does, or all the cornerbacks aren't playing man, so they're 10 yards off. You can't play that soft when you have a backup quarterback who's only going to throw it 3 yards. That's on Mike Caldwell for a bad defensive scheme. He needed people up on them trying to jump those short routes. It wasn't on the pass rush. And I don't want to hear Tyson Campbell was just on Jamar Chase, because he wasn't. He also was on T. Higgins, who also is coming off a hamstring injury. And T. Higgins made Tyson Campbell look like an absolute fool on the game-winning drive when it's 3rd and 10. All you have to do is make sure he doesn't get a first down, and you let him absolutely burn you on an out route. It's ridiculous. Tyson Campbell is not a starting cornerback anymore. It happened to AJ Boye when he played for us the 2017 season. He was very good, and then he left and went 2018 and was miserable. It's happening here again. Tyson Campbell's just not a good player anymore. I'm sorry. It's time to sit him. And I would have rather had the used car lot Flappy Man out there instead of Tyson Campbell.
Woo! I agree with Campbell's performance this season. I am not ready to write him off for sure. I do agree with you, JT, on the reality is he's 23, maybe he's 24 now. So he should have a lot more life in his legs and youth, and he still has potential to grow and get better. But I don't know what it is of injury or confidence or something, but his play on the field this year has taken a drastic leap backwards. But I will say overall about the defensive performance, look, the reality is sometimes you are going to have bad games. And again, this was a bad game from Coach Caldwell. I thought the game plan from the defense from him was bad. It was off. But sometimes you're going to have bad games, but you need to have a bounce back game on Sunday. And again, it's a short week. I think the Cowboys are one of the top defenses in the league, and they got shown up by the Seahawks and Geno Smith on Thursday Night Football. Now, granted, the Cowboys still did enough to win, but you will have games where even a very talented defense gets exposed and plays bad. But you cannot make this a pattern. And unfortunately, the secondary and allowing some bad quarterbacks go off seems like the pattern. I'm less worried about the run defense and the pass defense.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in Caldwell's ability to make adjustments. And to be fair to him too, this is a very different offensive look than what what Cincinnati did last week against Pittsburgh. They started to implement more of their old, more traditional short game, quick game stuff with that Burrow is so known for. And they were uber aggressive at times, stupidly aggressive. For example, doing a wide receiver passes, which if I was Zach Taylor going into this game, I feel like I'm going to have to steal points and steal yards. And so that's probably why those plays are in the playbook. But even in the possessions that they didn't score, they were moving the ball at will and oftentimes getting 30, 40 yards when the game before they didn't even, I think we said out of the 10 drives, they only had one that was longer than four plays. And so this was a dramatically different offense than what we saw. And there's not a lot of film on Browning. Now that there is, my guess is you're not going to see Browning continue to light up like he did against this. And I think Caldwell will fix some of these inefficiencies. But it is concerning because we did lose Herndon. We did lose Cisco for a minute, although he did come back. And then I think we also lost a guy on the defensive line too, right?
Kasi went out.
Yeah, and I think this is, again, why it's difficult sometimes to break down. I'm more with you, Joey. I was so far, and I'm still, even 48 hours, really just upset at our defense because this was a game we should have made a statement game. We should have really blown them out. We're projected to win by more than a touchdown. Jaguars fans are feeling great. The fans are screaming. This is a big time moment. And we just get boat raced by a backup quarterback. And so it hurts, but it is hard to get the full picture because you had so many injuries on the defense. Even Gregory Jr. went out for a little bit and Antonio Johnson got in for a bit. So you're having your third, fourth string guys come in. And so this wasn't the Jaguars, not only best players on the field, but it wasn't best execution. And again, I do think we need to talk about Josh Allen, who Joey, you brought up at the very beginning, because he is playing at an almost defensive player of the year status. He needs to be in that conversation. He had 7 tackles, 1.5 sacks, a tackle for loss, a pass deflection, 2 quarterback hits, and an interception. He was phenomenal. But other than him, and Alua Khan got a lot of tackles. Shout out to him for being back on top of the tackles in the NFL. Everything else was terrible from the defense.
Yeah, I also think part of the defensive problems was, I don't know if this was Doug Peterson or Mike Caldwell, but we didn't even have Monteric Brown and Blackson dressed for this game. And you had Tyson Campbell and Devon Hamilton play in their places. And this is the second time it happened because it also happened during the 49ers game. They were our biggest problems. Right up the middle, they ran the ball and made Hamilton look like an idiot. They also threw it at Tyson Campbell the entire time, and he couldn't cover a ice cream sandwich. Like, it was so bad. And you had your players that needed to come in and replace them weren't even dressed. So that was a big blunder, I believe, on the coaching.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we had so many injuries all over the place hurt. And so it'll be nice to get some of those guys probably dressed for the Cleveland game. Because I agree with you, Joey. I think both of Buster Brown has played much better than I think people feared. And Blackson, I thought, has been putting some good stuff on film too over the last few weeks. And so as disappointing as the defense was, the special teams, honestly, was probably pretty close to a D or an F as well. A lot of questionable decisions or a lot of questionable play by them at pretty much every phase of the special teams. Where do you guys want to take this one?
Well, I mean, I couldn't believe McManus missed that field goal, because I do believe we win this game if he had made the first field goal that he missed.
Agreed.
48 yards. And then also, I didn't like Parker Washington taking the ball out of the end zone and then getting stopped at the 15. That was a bad idea, but that's a rookie mistake. Brandon McManus is a veteran, and you just lost your quarterback. You know you need these 3 points. You got to put it in between the posts. And I even think Doug was a little upset with him. I don't know if he was throwing shade at Brandon McManus or the defense, but he said CJ Beathard did a good job and drove him down the field for the tie field goal, even though it should have been the game-winning field goal. I'm not sure if he was throwing shade
That
at
was on McManus. That was absolutely on McManus. Yeah, I mean, a guy who's been mostly automatic, a veteran kicker. I get that the air's been sucked out of the room when Trevor goes down, but you got to go line up and make that kick, because now you just gave, again, max amount of momentum back to Cincinnati. Parker Washington, yes, the kickoff return was bad. And then the punt return where he fumbled the punt. We're really missing Agnew because he's such a game changer for us. I think we're slated to potentially get him back in the next few weeks, so that would be good. But I'm also going to call out Logan Cook. There are a few times where we really needed a big-time punt, and of the 5 punts he had, he only averaged 40 yards. His longest one was 43. And where we really could have used him is in overtime, where we're moving the ball. That should have been a punt that puts it right around the 10-yard line. Instead, Cincinnati's starting that possession around the 27. And so that's a huge difference in a game where every yard matters for a kick. Who knows what would have happened if he could have pinned them inside the 10-yard line? Who knows? Maybe we get the ball around the 50 again with a chance for a 10 yards and a game-winning field goal in overtime.
I did notice the bad punting as well. He was not pinning them back, and they definitely were not flying as far as they needed to. Hopefully that's not a sign that Logan Cook isn't playing well either.
Agreed. Not much more to add from me. Parker Washington did have some of the best plays and some bad plays. In fact, he was also the guy who ran the wrong route on the play that got Trevor Lawrence hurt, and he did, of course, apologize after and felt terrible. But I do like the flashes he showed, so that was a good sign. But hey, we've got 1 month or so of Jags football left. What would you say would be success for the Jaguars in these final 5 games?
I think the best success would be going 4-1 in these next 5 games. If you can somehow find a way to pull out a victory against the Browns, which is very possible, I don't think that we're going to beat the Ravens. And not because we're not good enough, it's because we're playing them at home. I don't know what it is playing at home this year, but it seems like it is our kryptonite. So if we can just go out and win the rest of the games, go 4-1, I think that's very doable, and I think that would be a great way to end the season.
So actually, Joey, maybe for your take, maybe they shouldn't go 4-1 because maybe they don't want home field advantage in the playoffs.
they would want it for the first round, but there ain't no way that we're getting it in the second divisional round or the AFC Championship. So just knowing that we can go on the road and win is good enough, but I would still want to win the division just so I don't have to hear Texans or Colts fans chirping about how they're the better team or something like that.
Yeah, I think you hit it, Joey. It's division win. I think 3-2 probably gets you that. You probably can lose the next 2 games and then win your last 3. Honestly, you could probably even go 2-3 and still win your division because we're still up 2 games on both the Texans and the Colts due to some tiebreaker issues or tiebreaker scenarios. So look, find a way to win your division, find a way to host a home playoff game, and ideally get healthy for January would be where I'm hoping we can be over the next 5 weeks.
You all said it. Win the division. To me, that's success. And hey, this year's had its ups and downs, but it is cool that we're building on momentum. As long as we go 2-3, we're still gonna have more wins than we have last year. So whether we need 2 or 3 wins, I think the key is getting that home field in the first round, winning the division, being back-to-back AFC South champions, and taking some momentum, taking some health into the playoffs. Let's make a deep run. We still believe.
So that is going to be the end for us today, talking about the terrible performance that our defense had during the Cincinnati Bengals game. It was really upsetting that we couldn't go out and win on Monday night. It was 11 years since we had Monday night, but I was happy to see that it actually was a good game for other people to watch. We had the best ratings on Monday night since 2013, so that was great to see. I really hope that the Jags can bounce back, get over some of these injuries, and we can go out and beat these Browns. We will go ahead and talk about them in the next episode and break down whether we can still win that game with or without Trevor. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Until then,
Duval.